Rivera, what's
Hey! Hi!
Oh my God. So I can't think of a better way to celebrate the start of Hispanic Heritage Month than to chat with you about your awesome new book, Never Look Back. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome. I'm so glad we got to do this.
I'm wearing my Latinx storyteller shirt.
Yes.
So, okay. I have to admit that when I opened Never Look Back, I had to read it in one day. It was impossible to put down. Um, it's worth also saying that I was never into Greek mythology ever. And I feel like you now need to write books about all of the stories because now I love it.
I'm so glad you got into it because that's what I love. Is like when people tell me that they couldn't put the book down, I just want, that's all I need to know. I'm like, I did my job.
There's so many factors for that. I mean, apart from the amazing writing, I have to say the format where you go between Fias and Yuri's stories. Like, I'm a Latina, I'm a chismosa. I'm like, wait, he said this. Well, what did she say? And that's what kept me going. Like, oh my God, I can't put this down.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun doing that because it was my first time writing from the point of view of a boy. So it was a blast. I mean, I had a really good time just writing his point of view and then hitting back to Yudi's point of view. So it was really fun to go back and forth.
Tell me what it was about the Orpheus and Eurydice Greek myth that made you want to write a whole book about it.
Oh, I found out about the Greek myth through the movie Black Orpheus. I don't know if anyone has ever seen it, but it's a 1959 film that's set in Brazil during Carnival, during in Rio de Janeiro, and it's a French film by Camus, I think his name is. I can't remember, but anyway, it's a beautiful movie, and it follows the Greek myth. And I fell in love with that movie when I was like, I don't know, 9 years old. And I knew that somehow I wanted to redo that myth or retell that myth somewhere, in my life, down the road. And so I figured it out how to do it. And I wanted to definitely put it in the Bronx because that's where I'm from, and have Afro Latino characters, one who's Dominican and the other who's from Puerto Rico, and just have them fall in love and see what happens, and I really, it was really, that was where I found that myth. It was I found it through that movie Black Orpheus.
Now, I mean, there's so many pieces to this that dance together so beautifully together. I have to talk about the music aspect, like the sounds of the bachatas and just all the music that come across these pages, what came to life in my head. But I absolutely need a soundtrack to this.
Yeah, that was my favorite part, was because because Fierce, who's Orpheus in the book, he's a wannabe bachata singer, and he is all about bachata. So I just fell into that world of bachata music. And I don't know if you listen to bachata, but it is very sexy. It's love. It's melancholy. It's very rooted in Dominican Republic, and so I fell into that world, and I had a playlist. It's up on Spotify and it's all inspired about it. So it's a lot of bachata music, a lot of Romeo Santos, who we all know is from the Bronx, who's Dominican, and is one of the biggest bachata singer there is now, and also boleros, a lot of Puerto Rican, and Prince, because Yudi, who's Puerto Rican, she loves Prince, and Prince has a very important thing in her life. So so I had a lot of Prince going on. So there's music all throughout the novel, which was really super important for me.
Well, I grew up in Miami, so I grew up with a majority of Dominicans in my school. So all the slang, all the music, I felt that in my heart. If he's watching, it reminded me of my Dominican boyfriend that I had in high school. I won't say his name, but this book super got me in the heart. I need this to be a TV show. Can you please make this a TV show?
I need that to happen too. I mean, there's talks, there's swirling, I need everybody to light the candles to put their offerings out for this to happen, but I really do see it as a TV or a movie, something that I think young people would love. We don't get enough young lovers, Afro Latino lovers up on this big screen or the small screen. So I think we're past due. It's past due to have that. So yeah, we need a new retelling, and I think my book would fill that slot.
I think about that the whole time. I'm like, we've been talking so much about representation in Hollywood, well, also in the literary world, obviously, but how much more beautiful stories we need about our Afro Latinos, brothers and sisters. And I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. So we need to manifest that for you.
Yes, yes, yes.
While we're on the topic, I love that Fies at one point in the book, he addresses the conflicts that he had with his identity being Latino, Afro-Latino. Can you talk about why it was so important? I mean, now more than ever, but, always important.
Well, I'm Puerto Rican. Obviously, I'm not Afro-Latino, so I'm writing outside of my own experience. But I come from a big Puerto Rican family, and we obviously have, African roots. We obviously have, Puerto Rican roots, all of that. We're all in there, but we also suffer from colorism. And so when I was writing about Fierce, this is something that I know so well. It's just when you're Black and you live in the city and you are literally a walking target, for all kinds of things. So the threats are real and they're ongoing all the time. And so I really wanted to write about that experience, and to also examine my own privileges within writing those experiences. And this is my love letter to my family, to my cousins in Puerto Rico, to my family in the Bronx. And I really didn't want to sugarcoat anything. I wanted it to be as real as possible. And so hopefully that's what I did in the book.
You absolutely did. I was gonna say, this is definitely a love story between, these two people. But it's also very much a love story to Puerto Rico, and all the good and bad and all these things that have happened. I haven't been to a Yunque in years, and we can't travel right now, but I traveled to a Yunque thanks to your book. Can you talk a little bit more about the role that Puerto Rico plays in the story?
Yeah, Yunque is my favorite place in Puerto Rico. I even got married there. That's how much it's important to me. And so I haven't been there in a couple of years, but I think the last year was like maybe 2 years ago. It has such a strong place in my heart, and the island itself. So whenever I go to Puerto Rico, to me, Yunque is a magical place. And it's really hard for me to explain it to anyone who hasn't been there before, but there's something in that place that's very spiritual. And so I really wanted to capture that in my novel. Yuri also is in love with El Yunque. And so when I was writing about it, I kept thinking about all the places that I've been to, and just trying to capture all the fauna and the flora and the animals and all the birds and all these things that, it's a rainforest on the island. And I don't know if anyone ever goes to visit, but you must. You have to go there because it's a beautiful place.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Actually, fun fact, when I got the call from Entertainment Weekly that they were interested in talking to me, I was in Puerto Rico. So this was last year. I was in Puerto Rico walking the streets of Viejo San Juan, and I'm like, oh my God. So I will, Puerto Rico is now also special to me. But yeah, I mean, you can smell, taste, and see everything from the island through your book. I didn't know about the Lloronas, but the Coqui, obviously, I knew about. So I feel like anybody who is not familiar, with Puerto Rico or New York life, or even just, the Latino spirit, will totally get that experience through your book.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote the Orpheus book. I wrote Never Look Back because of Hurricane Maria, because of what happened in Hurricane Maria, and it affected my family deeply. I had people who were missing during that time, and so I was full, I was like most people, I was full of rage, and on helplessness. And I wanted to figure out a way of writing, of funneling my rage and writing about hope and love. And that was really the only way I could do it, was through this Greek myth, you know, as a structure. And yeah, it's my way of dealing with, you know, as everyone, I don't know, as I'm a writer. So when I write to try to get through the hate. Because if not, I'm like, you know, I want to bang somebody. Like, it's like, what? How can I handle this? This is terrible. So what can I do? I have to find hope through writing. So.
Well, Taylor Swift writes songs, and Lilliam Rivera writes incredible stories. So, okay, I don't want to give away too much, but there is a scene, a very important scene that completely made me go inward into my own life. It's towards the end where he is faced with the reality of so many things and the intentions of people from his life that, you know, that he never got to see. Can you talk a little bit about that? And you know, we're in a pandemic, and I'm sitting here going through my feelings because of this book.
Oh man, yo, I totally get that. You know, this book is really about people who believe and people who don't believe. So there's the non-believers and the believers, and so it's really about what you want to see. You know, and so with Fierce, you know, Fierce has always been about, you know, he's a bachata singer, so he knows how to woo the girls, and he uses his singing talent to do that. But he doesn't believe it as a gift. He just believes that as a way of just fooling around or whatever. Right. So it's like, you know, he's a player. So get to see what that looks like. You know, it's not all just games. You know, who he's playing around with is not all just as black and white as he thinks it is. So I really wanted to play around with that, because it's just, you know, you never know who you're hurting. Even if it's as light as, you know, as light as a summer fling, you don't know who you're hurting. So yeah, so I wanted to make sure that not everyone is, you know, oh, she's jealous, she's a jealous girl, or, you know, it's not clean cut. You know, people have emotions and feelings. So I wanted to explore that a little, especially with Fierce, who is in denial of his gift. His gift is to move people, and he has been using it, you know, kind of like just squandering it for no reason.
Well, even like the you know, for me, it was more like, you know, our parents. There's many moments where he's like, oh, they just did the best that they can. And sometimes, you know, you want to be angry at certain aspects of the way that they raised you, or like whatever. And this book really made me think of, like, you know what, like, they're all dealing with their, you know, there's a moment where he goes, you know, and sees kind of like what his parents actually went through. And that really hit me. Like, that was the slap in the face, where I was like, you know, you get mad at people, you know, mostly your parents, because you think, oh, they failed me here or there. But wait, but you have no idea what their life was like.
Yeah, and I think that's the key to writing young adults, is like that experience, that discovery of when you discover your parents aren't, you know, they have desires and wants and fears that maybe you're not a privy to, you know, because you just see them as like, oh, the authority figure, but you know, they're struggling with who knows what. And so we're blessed to, like, you know, have this relationship, but it's a hard relationship, because they, you know, I don't know about you, but for Latinos, we're not supposed to express emotions. we're supposed to take care of business and just leave it at that. You know, there are no emotions or any kind of like mental illness kind of situations. You just, you know, you just work. And so I really wanted to talk about that and see how that affects, you know, families, like all in, you know, just full on the full family, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, you were hitting. Listen, and I'm una vieja, and it was a YA book, and I was, it was like, it was, listen, so many things in this book that, you know, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. And I just didn't feel like I was going to be all in my feelings. Well, part. You briefly mentioned that you first heard the story from the movie that you saw. How did it come up as your idea? Like, how was it reborn into this book?
I was having a hard time dealing with what I wanted to write next. And so my sister was like, "Oh, you should write, a retelling of Black Orpheus. Like, we love that movie, and I was just like, how can I write about like and Hurricane Maria and all those things without it being like a history book or just be full of just horrible." So I was like, let me go into this world where it's like never the underworld, and just be speculative and magical and put magical realism in there. And it really was my way of coping with anxiety, with my own anxiety, with my own fear, with my own sadness that I felt during that time, during Hurricane Maria. It's like, it's been 3 years today was when the hurricane landed on the island, and people are still suffering. They're still dealing with that right now. And so, it's 3 years. And that's how long it took for me to write this book, because I was still dealing with it. I go to visit my family, and they're still like, "Oh, this is what's happening on this island, here's in my town, things are still not right." So, yeah, so that was the way I used the structure, because that was my way of like, okay, I know the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, so now I could figure out a way of implementing it somehow.
I want to talk more about the magical realism side of it all, because that really caught me also by surprise. All of a sudden, like, all of these things were happening, and I'm like, wait, where did we go from this cute love story to all of this stuff happening and being sad, and like just all these things were happening, and I was like, wait. And that was the moment that it was like, literally, I have to finish this right now. But if you can give insight into the magical realism.
Yeah, it's I grew, obviously, like, I grew up reading those kind of magical realism books. Obviously, Gabriel Garcia Marquez was a big deal. But I also read some Puerto Rican authors who, of course, I can't think right now, but they also wrote magical realism, and obviously Isabel Allende and Julia Alvarez at one point. And so to me, it's all for Latinos. It's a lot like, is it magical realism or is it just fact? Like, how many of us have we grew up listening to stories about, about visiting relatives who passed away? Like, it's just common. I don't know. To me, it felt that way. So when I was writing it, I was really writing it in that sense of like, New York is a magical space. The Bronx is magical, and Puerto Rico. And so those places it didn't seem so otherworldly for me to incorporate those kind of magical elements in there,
Well, a lot of people have a lot of feelings to process during this pandemic. Do you have any advice for anybody who wants to start writing or continue writing, how they can kind of channel their feelings into some stories?
Yeah, I really, that's the only way I'm dealing with this pandemic is through writing. It's the only way I could cope for the most part. So, I allow myself to write, and it could just be for an hour or nothing. It could just be for 10 minutes, whatever it is. But I try to write every day, and just to have fun. And even when I'm not writing, I'm researching what my next project will be. And the research is always fun to me because I love it. I write about history, and, I try to incorporate those things. So I have fun with researching stuff. But honestly, writing is my escape. So if I could write for a little bit, that's my way of dealing with certain things. And I don't have to look at news. I don't have to look at Twitter. I don't have to look at the headlines for the day. I can write and control this world, control the world on the page, and that is very little control, but it's more than enough.
So anybody starting, they should just grab their laptop and just start writing, whatever.
Yeah, look, I used to not have an office. I used to write in the car. I used to write on my phone. If I were in New York, I would be writing on the train. So it doesn't matter. If you want to, you'll find the time. If you can carve 5 minutes, you can do it.
Okay, so it's tough to be releasing a book during a pandemic. Do you have any other books that I see that you're always promoting other wonderful authors? Do you have any other books that you've read that are about to come out or that have come out, in the last few months that you would like to recommend?
Oh man, there's so many. I would say even for today, I'm just gonna give you titles. So today's book launch includes so many other people, Latino authors who are amazing. There's one book that just came out. It's called Furia. It's Furaia. Another book that came out is it's called Blaze Wrath Games, that comes out in October, and that's Puerto Rican dinosaur racing. Which, of course, why not? It's awesome. There's another book that's, it's not Latino, but it's Grown by that came out today as well. So there's just so many books that came out. I think there's like 500 of us today with a new book.
And you have a special Star Wars thing that's coming out later this year. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I have a short story Star Wars in the anthology that celebrates Empire Strikes Back, which by far is my favorite of the anthology of that kind of like, string of movies. And so I get to write a short story, and I really was trying to find a way of putting the Bronx in there, putting Latinos in there, any kind of way. So it's a short story. It comes out, I think, in October or November. And the great thing about this anthology is that all the you buy the book and all the proceeds will go to charity. So it's awesome. And and I got to live my Greek dream as writing a Star Wars.
Okay, wait. So Star Wars, New York, like, you need to give us a little bit more than that.
Well, I will say that because all the stories have to be tied to Empire Strikes Back. So my character is a new character that I created, and she is she wants to be, she wants to be tough as can be, and she's a badass, but she's gonna have to figure out where her loyalty lies. So that's all I could say.
A female, she's Latina?
Yeah, I would say she's Latina, of course. I mean, why? How could I not write a Latina in Star Wars?
We need more Latino characters in Star Wars, so I'm here cheering. We need that to be a show or a movie of its own too.
Exactly. Look, I was like, can she run around with a Puerto Rican flag tied to her? I mean, I'm down. Can we put that in Star Wars? Let's do that.
That's awesome. So the connection between all the short stories is The Empire Strikes Back, and then everybody just had them to write about whatever they wanted.
Yeah, they could have picked like a character, like a small character in the movie, or they could have created a character, whatever it is. So it was like pretty open in that sense. It was really fun because I've watched that movie so many times. So I was like, yes, let me create something a little bit different. So
that's so dope. And so for anybody that's watching or will be watching later that are new to you, Lilliam, what should they be reading from you next?
Well, I mean, definitely, this. You should read this. This is what you should read. You should be reading this. So this book comes out. It came out today. I'm very super happy about it. And then I have I have my anthologies. I have a Star Wars anthology. I have actually a Wonder Woman anthology that is coming out from DC Comics, and that one is I did a comic book on AOC, and it's about her life. Yeah, so that comes out. It comes out in, I'm almost sure, October, November. Everything comes out this year. And so it's a comic book, and it's a part of a big anthology. And so it's Wonder Woman in history, and it's all, praising women, current, modern women or women in the history, in the past, and, they're badass and fierce. And so I got to write a comic book on AOC, which is like amazing.
I mean, mandatory hoop earrings and red lipstick, right?
I mean, when that comes out, I will be wearing that.
I will join in that, and I will do both also in solidarity with you guys. Hey, tell everybody where they can buy your book.
Yeah, you can buy it in all independent bookstores. I mean, we have to support our indie bookstores, so go to your local independent bookstore and order it from them. Also, you could buy it at, obviously online. It'll be on audiobook, which I'm super excited about. That'll come out a couple, little later this month. But there's an audiobook. It's on Kindle. You could buy it online, digital versions. But definitely go support your indie bookstores because they are in desperate need of your money, and and they need to survive. So I hit up the Lit Bar in the Bronx. That's the independent bookstore in the Bronx. You can buy it from them. Yeah.
Well, I certainly endorse people spending money on this book. It's so good. They won't be able to put it down. I need a sequel to find out like what happens after.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think that you've done a sequel before, but
I have not. I always like to keep it at the end, like just move on to the next story. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe that'll change.
Next story?
You know what? I don't know what my next story is. I'm actually, even though I tell everyone to write every day, I'm taking a little break to kind of see where I want to go next. But I have some, book announcements that'll come out soon. So I have forthcoming books that will be coming out soon that I can't talk about yet, but yes.
Awesome. Well, Lilliam Rivera, Never Look Back. Let's see the book cover again. Support this amazing author. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so great to see you.
Yeah, buy the book right now, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.